1 week after his wife's funeral, the phone rang. Her doctor. "Mr. Harrison, I need to see you immediately. Your wife left instructions with me before she died. Instructions I was only to follow if she passed first. What she told me could save your life. But you need to come to my office right now. Don't eat or drink anything until we talk. This is urgent." His name was Richard Harrison, 66 years old in 2007, retired high school history teacher from Sacramento, California, taught for 38 years at Lincoln High School, the kind of teacher students remembered decades later. Patient, passionate about history, made the Revolutionary War feel as exciting as a thriller novel. He'd been married to Margaret for 41 years. They met in college, UC Berkeley, 1964. She was studying nursing. He was studying history. They sat next to each other in a philosophy class, started talking, never stopped. Married 2 years later, right after graduation, Margaret became a registered nurse, worked in oncology at UC Davis Medical Center for 35 years. She'd seen thousands of patients, held hundreds of hands, witnessed the best and worst of what medicine could do. They had 2 children, Daniel, 39, living in Portland with his wife and 2 kids, and Sarah, 36, living in San Diego, recently divorced, working as a pharmacist. Margaret had always been healthy, never smoked, rarely drank, exercised regularly, ate well. Annual checkups always came back perfect. "You'll outlive me by 20 years, Richard used to joke. Then came February 2007. Margaret started feeling tired, not normal tired, exhausted, sleeping 12 hours and waking up drained. She blamed it on a busy month at the hospital, double shifts, flu season, stressful cases. But by March there were other symptoms: bruising easily, night sweats, loss of appetite. She'd lost 15 pounds without trying, Richard noticed. "Maggie, you need to see a doctor." "I am a nurse. I know my body. It's just stress and getting older. Please, for me." She finally went to her primary care physician in early April, Dr. Patricia Chen. They'd known each other for years. Margaret had actually worked with Dr. Chen's mother at the hospital. Dr. Chen ran blood tests. The results came back 3 days later. She called Margaret directly. "Margaret, I need you to come in. Bring Richard." They sat in Dr. Chen's office on April 12, 2007. Richard knew immediately it was bad. You don't ask the spouse to come unless it's serious. Dr. Chen didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Margaret, your blood work shows severe anemia, elevated white blood cell count, and abnormal platelets. I've already scheduled you for a bone marrow biopsy tomorrow morning at UC Davis, but I'm fairly certain what we're dealing with." "Leukemia," Margaret said quietly. "Yes, acute myeloid leukemia most likely. We won't know for sure until the biopsy, but the markers are there." Richard felt the room tilt. "What does that mean? What's the prognosis?" Dr. Chen looked at Margaret, not Richard. Professional courtesy. Margaret was a nurse. She understood. AML in patients over 60 has a 5-year survival rate of about 20% with aggressive treatment. Without treatment, weeks to months. Margaret nodded. She'd nursed AML patients. She knew what was coming: the chemotherapy, the nausea, the hair loss, the infections, the bone marrow transplants, the slim chances. Richard grabbed her hand. "We'll fight it, whatever it takes." The biopsy confirmed it. Acute myeloid leukemia, stage 3. Aggressive, fast-growing, already spreading. Margaret started chemotherapy immediately. The first round hit her hard. She was hospitalized for complications, infection, sepsis, nearly died in week 2. But she fought back, made it through the first round, then the second. Her counts improved slightly, enough to give hope. By July, she was in partial remission. The doctors talked about a bone marrow transplant. Daniel was tested as a potential donor. He was a match, 97% compatibility. The transplant was scheduled for September 15th, Risky, but it was Margaret's best shot at long-term survival. Through all of this, Richard was there. Every appointment, every treatment, every hospital stay. He'd taken early retirement to be with her full-time. Nothing else mattered. Margaret handled it with the same calm professionalism she'd shown her patients for 35 years. She knew the statistics, knew the odds, but she fought anyway. In late August, about 2 weeks before the scheduled transplant, Margaret had a good week, felt stronger, had energy. Her counts were stable. She asked Richard to take her out to dinner, their favorite restaurant, a little Italian place they'd been going to for 30 years. They sat at their usual table, ordered their usual dishes. For a few hours it felt almost normal. Halfway through dinner, Margaret reached across the table and took Richard's hand. "Rich, I need to talk to you about something serious." "Okay. I need you to promise me you'll do something, no matter what happens to me." "Maggie, don't talk like that. The transplant is going to work. You're going to—" "Richard, listen to me. I'm a nurse. I know what AML does. I know the statistics. I need you to promise me something. Anything. If something happens to me, if I don't make it, I need you to go see Dr. Chen within 1 week of my death. Tell her I sent you. She'll know what to do." "What are you talking about?" "Just promise me. 1 week after I die, if I die, go see Dr. Chen. Tell her Margaret sent me. That's all you have to say." "Maggie, this doesn't make sense. What's going on?" She squeezed his hand. "Promise me, Richard. This is important. More important than you know." He promised. Didn't understand it, but he promised. The transplant happened on schedule, September 15th, 2007. The procedure went well. Daniel's bone marrow was a perfect match. The doctors were optimistic. Margaret spent 3 weeks in isolation. Richard couldn't even touch her, could only see her through glass. She smiled at him every day, gave him thumbs up, mouthed, "I love you." By October she was released, came home, weak but alive. The early signs were good. Her body was accepting the transplant, but then in late October she developed complications, graft versus host disease. Daniel's bone marrow was attacking her organs, her liver, her skin, her lungs. The doctors tried everything, steroids, immunosuppressants. Nothing worked. By early November she was back in the hospital, failing quickly. Richard was there when she took her last breath. November 8th, 2007, 2:47 a.m. She was 65 years old. She looked at him one last time, whispered, "Remember what I told you. Dr. Chen, 1 week. Promise." "I promise, Maggie, I promise." She died 3 minutes later. The funeral was November 12th. 200 people attended, former patients, colleagues, friends, family. Margaret had touched a lot of lives in 35 years of nursing. Richard moved through the funeral in a daze, shook hands, accepted condolences, didn't remember any of it later. Daniel and Sarah stayed with him for a few days, made sure he ate, made sure he slept, but they had to get back to their own lives, jobs, kids, responsibilities. By November 15th, 1 week after Margaret's death, Richard was alone in the house they'd shared for 38 years. He remembered his promise. Dr. Chen, 1 week. He called the office. "This is Richard Harrison. I need to see Dr. Chen as soon as possible. My wife Margaret asked me to come see her." The receptionist's voice changed. "Mr. Harrison, Dr. Chen has been expecting your call. Can you come in this afternoon, 2 o'clock? "Yes." "Good. Dr. Chen said to tell you, don't eat or drink anything before you come. Nothing at all. This is very important." Richard hung up, confused. Don't eat or drink anything? What was going on? He arrived at Dr. Chen's office at 1:55 p.m. The receptionist took him straight back. No waiting. Dr. Chen was in her office, standing by the window, looking tense. "Richard, thank you for coming. Please sit down." "Dr. Chen, what's this about? Margaret made me promise to come see you, but she never told me why." Dr. Chen sat down across from him. "Richard, what I'm about to tell you is going to be difficult to hear. But Margaret made me promise to tell you if she died before you, and she was very specific about the timing, exactly 1 week after her death. I don't understand. Richard, Margaret came to see me in August, privately. She told me something she'd discovered, something she'd been investigating for months. She swore me to absolute confidentiality, said I couldn't tell you, couldn't tell anyone unless she died first. What did she discover? Dr. Chen took a deep breath. Richard, Margaret believed someone was poisoning you, slowly, over a period of years, and she believed she knew who it was. Richard stared at her. That's insane. Nobody's poisoning me. I'm fine. Are you? Richard, when was the last time you had a full blood panel done? I don't know. A year ago? 2 years? Margaret brought me your medical records from your last 3 annual checkups. I want you to look at something. She laid out 3 lab reports on the desk. 2005, 2006, 2007. Look at your liver enzymes. They've been rising steadily. Your kidney function has been declining. Your blood pressure has been creeping up despite medication. These aren't normal aging patterns, Richard. This is consistent with chronic low-level exposure to something toxic. That doesn't mean someone's poisoning me. It could be anything. Diet, stress, genetics. Margaret thought that too at first, but then she noticed something else. Do you remember being sick in March of 2006? Some kind of stomach flu that lasted a week? Vaguely. And again in September 2006? Another bout of digestive issues? I guess so. I get stomach bugs occasionally. Margaret documented 7 episodes over the past 2 years, always the same symptoms: nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, lasting 3 to 5 days, then complete recovery. So I have a sensitive stomach. Richard, Margaret was an oncology nurse for 35 years. She knew the signs of poisoning, and she started paying attention to when these episodes occurred. Want to know what she found? Dr. Chen pulled out a calendar, dates circled in red. Every single episode occurred within 24 hours of you eating something prepared by the same person, food you didn't share with anyone else, food that only you ate. Richard felt cold. Who? Your daughter Sarah. Richard stood up. That's ridiculous. Sarah wouldn't... Sit down, Richard, please. I need to show you the rest. Richard sat, his hands shaking. Dr. Chen continued. Margaret started investigating without telling you. She didn't want to believe it either. Sarah is her daughter, but Margaret was a scientist. She followed the evidence. She pulled out more documents, bank statements, insurance policies, legal documents. Margaret discovered that Sarah has been in serious financial trouble for 3 years. Her divorce cost her $200,000. She's $150,000 in debt. Credit cards maxed out. Behind on her mortgage. Her pharmacy salary isn't enough to cover it. Why didn't she tell us? We would have helped. Because Sarah knew what Margaret would say. Margaret was practical. She would have told Sarah to declare bankruptcy, downsize, start fresh. But Sarah didn't want to start fresh. She wanted money, quick money. Dr. Chen pulled out an insurance policy. Did you know Sarah is the beneficiary on your life insurance policy? Yes, of course, both kids are. Did you know that 2 years ago you increased that policy from $250,000 to $1.5 million? What? No, I never... You signed the papers, Richard. Margaret found them. Here's your signature. Richard looked at the signature. It looked like his, but he had no memory of signing it. I never signed this. I never increased my policy. Margaret believed Sarah forged your signature. She's a pharmacist. She has access to all kinds of medications, including things that can make someone confused, compliant, suggestible. Margaret thinks Sarah drugged you, had you signed papers you don't remember signing. This is insane. Sarah wouldn't... Richard, 3 months ago, Sarah asked Margaret about your health, asked if you had any heart conditions, any risk factors. Margaret said no. 2 weeks later, Sarah sent you a care package, do you remember? Yes, vitamins, health supplements. She said she wanted me to stay healthy. Dr. Chen's face was grim. Margaret kept one of those bottles, had it tested at a private lab. The vitamin D capsules? They contain digoxin, a heart medication. In high doses, it's toxic. In low doses, given over time, it causes exactly the symptoms you've been having, and it can trigger a fatal heart attack. Richard felt like he couldn't breathe. Sarah is trying to kill me. Margaret believed so. She spent months gathering evidence, documented everything, kept records, had things tested. She was building a case to take to the police, but then she got sick. And once the leukemia hit, everything else became secondary. She was focused on survival. Why didn't she tell me? Because she was afraid. Afraid you wouldn't believe her. Afraid of what it would do to the family. Afraid Sarah might accelerate the poisoning if she knew Margaret suspected. She wanted absolute proof before she said anything. And she was planning to tell you, right after the transplant, if she survived. But she didn't survive. No, so she left instructions with me. If she died, I was to wait exactly 1 week. Why 1 week? Because Sarah would expect you to be vulnerable right after the funeral, grieving, not thinking clearly. Margaret predicted Sarah would make a move during that first week. Richard's voice was barely a whisper. Did she? Dr. Chen nodded. Margaret had me monitoring your credit. 3 days ago, someone tried to take out a loan in your name. $75,000. Using your information. The bank flagged it as suspicious and called me, as per Margaret's instructions. The application came from an IP address registered to Sarah's home. What do I do? First, we run a full toxicology panel on you, right now. That's why I said don't eat or drink anything. We need clean samples. Then we go to the police with everything Margaret documented. And Richard, you need to understand something. Sarah is desperate. Desperate people do desperate things. Until we have her in custody, you're in danger. Richard sat in that office for 3 hours. Gave blood, gave urine samples, gave hair samples. Dr. Chen called the police. Detectives arrived, took statements, looked at Margaret's evidence. The toxicology results came back 48 hours later. Digoxin in his system, levels consistent with chronic poisoning, exactly as Margaret had suspected. The police obtained a warrant to search Sarah's home, found digoxin tablets hidden in a bathroom drawer, found documents with Richard's forged signature, found emails to life insurance companies asking about payout timelines. They arrested Sarah on November 19th, charged her with attempted murder, fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. Sarah denied everything at first, said the digoxin was for a patient, said the signatures were legitimate, said her mother was paranoid and delusional from the cancer, but the evidence was overwhelming. Margaret had documented everything, 3 months of evidence, lab results, photos, videos, financial records, medical records. Sarah's attorney tried to negotiate a plea deal. The prosecutor asked Richard what he wanted. Richard sat in the prosecutor's office, still trying to process it all. His daughter had been trying to kill him for insurance money for 2 years. What do I want? I want to know if my wife's leukemia was real, or if Sarah gave her that too. The prosecutor looked at the medical files. Richard, Margaret's leukemia was real. AML at her age, with her genetic markers, was inevitable. Sarah didn't cause it, but what? Margaret's medical team said something odd happened during her treatment. In August, someone delivered flowers to her hospital room. Within 24 hours, Margaret developed a severe infection, almost died. The flowers were never logged by the nursing staff. No record of who sent them. Richard closed his eyes. Sarah visited that day, brought flowers. We're investigating. But Richard, proving it would be almost impossible. The flowers are long gone. The infection could have been natural. We can't charge her for that. But I know. Margaret probably knew too. That's why she made her appointment with Dr. Chen in August, right after that infection. She knew Sarah had tried to kill her. Sarah pleaded guilty to attempted murder to avoid trial, sentenced to 25 years in state prison, eligible for parole in 18. Daniel flew in from Portland when he heard, stayed with Richard for 2 weeks. Dad, I had no idea. I never suspected. Sarah seemed normal. How could she... Desperation, Richard said, and greed. Terrible combination. Richard lived 9 more years after Sarah's arrest. He made it to 75, died of a stroke in 2016, peaceful, in his sleep. He never saw Sarah again. She wrote him letters from prison. He returned them unopened. Daniel inherited everything. Richard had changed his will the day after Sarah's arrest. Margaret's evidence, her careful documentation, her instructions to Dr. Chen had saved Richard's life. Even after her own death, she'd protected him. The nurse who fought cancer for 6 months, who knew she might not survive but made sure her husband would, who spent her final weeks gathering evidence against her own daughter, who left instructions with her doctor that would expose a murder plot 1 week after her funeral. The phone call that came exactly when Margaret predicted it would. The evidence that proved what a mother never wanted to believe about her child. The poisoning that was stopped just in time. Sometimes the people who love us protect us, even from beyond the grave. Sometimes a mother's final act is saving a father from their own child. Sometimes the most important appointment you'll ever keep is the one made by someone who knew they wouldn't be there to see it. Margaret Harrison died of leukemia on November 8, 2007. But her final case, her last investigation, her ultimate act of love, saved her husband's life 1 week later. And now you know the rest of the story. Paul Harvey. Good day.